Hello, once again. Welcome back to my 132nd Balls Boxing prediction video. So this next weekend, there are a couple fights that are quite interesting. And starting first with one on Friday, the 4th. Billy Joe Saunders versus Martin Murray. So this is an an all British super middleweight fight on Wembley. So the undefeated Billy Joe Saunders is 29-0 now. Is facing and also younger by 7 years actually. He's facing a 39-5-1 Martin Murray, who however has only been stopped by Golovkin in 11 rounds. So of course Saunders is the big favorite to win, because he is a more skilled fighter of the two. Technically, of course. Martin Murray has been he is the slightly taller of the two, not that much, only by an inch. And he's known as a strong fighter, as someone that goes forward a lot and isn't afraid to mix it up and brawl. So he likes, I don't see Saunders stopping Murray unless, of course, he is 38. But when you are so tough as he is, age really is not such a factor. And of course, he hasn't had that many fights. You have guys with 75 fights, of course. By then, their punch resistance starts to go. But of course, as we saw last weekend with Dubois versus Joyce, anything can happen, of course. So unless he should get cut or get a swelling around the eyes or eye, I don't think Murray goes anywhere. He will very likely go the distance. But of course, at his best, he was never really better than maybe a B minus fighter. Murray was just a tough guy, strong and big for a middleweight and maybe super middleweight. Billy Joe Saunders is, of course, he's not a really hard puncher either. He's got some, pop, but he's not the kind of that can stop a guy like Murray. So I think it is almost certain or given that Saunders wins on points, unanimous decision. Alright. So the next fight is a really big one. Definitely one of the last big fights this year. Errol Spence Jr. Versus Danny Garcia. So Spence is returning, of course. This will be his first fights after the accident. So that's gonna be interesting, to see how he now reacts, or if the accident has affected him in any way. I don't think it should have, because though it was a rather serious accident, it wasn't like something that really leaves you changed forever, and in a serious way. So he's fighting, of course, Danny Garcia, who has 36 wins and 2 losses. But yeah, his last loss was to Sean Porter in 2018. So since then he's had 2 fights only. But he's had a fight this year in January, while Spence has not. And it went 12 rounds. So that may be a factor actually. And Spence's last fight was against Sean Porter when he won by a split decision. Yeah, so this is for WBC and IBF welter titles, and well, IBF is Spence title, while WBC is a title that they have put up, also on the line. So it's not Garcia's. It's not a title unification fight per se, because it's usually called that when 2 titleists or champions fight each other. So yeah, this will be really, I think, a close fight. But it depends, Of course, the last weekend's star fight between Danny Jacobs and Gabe Rosado was a disappointment. So just might turn out that this one may turn out that way too. Of course, because Spence is returning, to action after like over a year, so 14 months. So I don't think he will, go all out. He will be rather cautious, I believe, especially in the early going. Yeah, Errol Spence. Of the two, I would say Garcia has definitely a harder punch, because Spence, you could see it, for instance, when he fought Brook. He was very dominant, but it took him some time to wear down Brook, even though Brook is tough, of course, but I don't think Garcia would have taken so long, because he does have that killer left hook, of course. So I think maybe Spence may struggle here, because this is his. It maybe wasn't so wise of him and his management to match him up with a world-class fighter right after, all this, in his very next fight after the accident, after the long layoff. So it wasn't so. I think he might find himself struggling, So let's look at here. Spence is a southpaw, while Garcia is orthodox. Spence has a slight height advantage, 1.5 inch. That shouldn't really mean much, but he's got a 3.5 inch advantage. Reach advantage, sorry. Inch reach, yeah. It's really hard to predict fights like these, because you don't know with guys like Spence or Garcia, sometimes, especially Garcia, sometimes he can really, impress, and sometimes he just is kind of listless and doesn't do that much. His problem, I guess, is that he even though he doesn't have that many knockouts, but that's because he has fought some tough guys. He is primarily a counter puncher, who just waits for the chance to land a big left hook. So yeah, Spence is more like an boxer puncher, I guess. Which is not. I'm not saying Garcia can box, but he's a little flat-footed. Yeah, so that has been a problem against guys like Porter and Thurman. So, but I just have a feeling that Garcia will win this fight, believe it or not. Yeah. So that's, but based on their respective styles and records, I'd say that Spence has a slightly better chance to win. So that's purely technically from a technical standing point, but he's had an accident and a layoff, so he might be a little rusty. While Garcia also, he knows that he's now in the latter stage of his career, so he must win a fight like this to be able to get another, big fight. So maybe even against Crawford or someone like that, or Porter even. So he will, I think, do his best to win. But of course, I don't know really. If I'm to be totally sure, I would go for a split decision in Spence's favor or something. Yeah, either that or a knockout for Danny Garcia. Yeah, so that was a pretty unclear prediction. But that's the way it is sometimes. Alright, so there is just one more smaller fight I would like to cover, which is Sebastian Fundora versus Jorge Cota. So this guy Fundora is a very tall super welterweight, at 6'6" almost, and he's fighting a guy who is 5'11", rather tall for a super welterweight, but still a lot shorter than Fundora. Yeah, Jorge Cota, he's been knocked out by Jermell Charlo in 3 rounds before, but he lost a split decision to Jason Rosario, so he's a rather solid, contender, but not a world class one. So Fundora, he knocked out Nathaniel Gallimore actually in his last fight, which was pretty, impressive in 6 rounds. And so that was his biggest victory so far. So this fight is for 12 rounds. I think Fundora might even pull off another stoppage here, somewhere in the 8th round, maybe something like that. Alright, so that was the one for this time. Be sure to subscribe if you like my videos, and I also got a boxing group on Facebook, which is called Boxing Haven. So see you until next time. Bye bye.